Welcome to Module 8, working with trend lines, pivot tables, pivot charts, and slicers. In this module, we're going to be looking at trend lines, creating pivot tables, pivot charts, and formatting pivot tables and pivot charts. We're going to filter pivot charts, and we'll analyze worksheet data using pivot table and pivot chart reports. We'll be creating calculated fields, creating a slicer, formatting some slicers, and then finally we'll create a box and whisker chart. The project we're working on is Bell and Rogers Accounting, and they're a firm that began 6 years ago with 50 employees who perform a wide variety of accounting and tax services. They keep records on clients, employees, billable hours, and revenue, among other things. Over the 6 years, they have hired several more accountants to their 2 locations in Durant and Jameson. So the owners of Bell and Rogers are interested in reviewing the billable hours for the past 6 years. They're also requested a comparison of the last 2 years of revenue figures from different service types. So this is the documents and the finished documents that we're going to be creating. So we have some data. We're going to create a line chart with a trend line. We'll create a clustered column chart. We'll create a pivot chart, pivot report, and a box and whisker table or chart. I have opened up my file that I'm going to be working on, and I see that there are two sheets. One is the 6-year billable hours sheet. The other is analysts' figures. So those are the 2 tables that are in our Excel spreadsheet. And we're going to start with creating a line chart and a trend line. When we look at a line chart, that's simply a chart that displays data as lines across categories. So it illustrates the amount of change in data over a period of time, and it could and can compare multiple items. So let's get started with a line chart. We're going to create a line chart, a 2D line chart of the Bell and Rogers billing data. We're going to add the trend line a little later. So I'm going to start at A4 to G5. I'm going to select that data. I'll go to Insert, and in the chart group, I'm going to choose the line chart. So this is Insert Line or Area Chart. I'll click that, and I'm going to choose the 2D line, and I'll choose a 2D line with markers. So we can see that there is a marker or dot basically every time we have a change in value. Okay, that's what those markers are. I'm going to take this chart and I'm going to move the chart. So under the chart design, under Move Chart, I'll select that. And I'm going to choose to put it on a new sheet. So it's a sheet all by itself and not a part of this sheet. The new sheet is going to be called Trend Line Chart. And I will choose to say OK. And now I have a chart with a trend line, or sorry, a 2D chart or line chart. But when we look at this, we can see that there's a few things that need to be fixed. First of all, we have a big gap down here, and our data doesn't start until after 100,000. So we want to get rid of the bottom where there is never going to be data in. So I'm going to click on the axes options, or click on the axes here, because the vertical axes, I want to just get rid of all of this. So I want a minimum value in here to be 100,000. So if I look over here, I have my format my axes. I'm going to choose the axes options, and then I'm going to choose axes options right here. So you can see we have a few options. We have minimum and maximum, and we have some major and minor units. For now, we're going to stick with the bounds. So within what bounds? I want the minimum to be 100,000. Okay, and as soon as I click off of it, you'll see a big change. So now my bottom value is going to be 100,000. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually change the title of the chart. Right now it says total billable hours, and that's okay, but I'm going to change that to say total billable hours, and that's, I'll put a space in there. It should be up here. Let's see if we can. So this value right here, I'll take it out. Total billable hours, and that's 2016. I think I forgot the 6. 2016 to 2021. Okay, so it says 20. Look at that thing I'm watching. 2016 to 2021. And that's the new chart title. When I push enter, it should stick around. There we go. And now we have a new heading here and a line chart with a minimum of 100. Final thing I want to do here is change this chart style. So I'm going to choose the quick styles here, and I'm going to choose chart style 14. Oh, this one right here. I was on chart style 14, which is nice. Okay, so now we have our chart style. It's just what we want. Our next step is to create a trend line. So we want to create a trend line to be able to see what the trend is in our data. So it removes kind of the squiggly part of our line and straightens it out. And then that allows us to forecast forward. You can add trend lines to almost any chart, specifically line charts. So it allows us to say, okay, we have 6 years of sales data, then we can forecast, say, 2 periods ahead so that we can have and see what's going to happen at year 8. So that's what we're going to do, is put in a trend line. So I'm going to click on the chart, and I'm going to go over here to chart layouts, and I'm going to go to add chart elements. I will click there, and I'm going to choose trend lines. Now, when I select trend lines, it comes up with linear, exponential, none, of course, linear forecast, moving average, etc. I'm going to choose more trend options just so that we can see what they are. And right here is my format my trend line. So it talks about the shadows and the glows. So it's selected. Now I'm going to go over here into my more options. So it talks more about my trend line options. And I want to choose linear trend line, just because the linear one is the straight one. Okay, so it shows you a picture of what they would be. And we're going to go down and we're going to say forecast 2 points forward. Okay, so we want to go forward by 2 periods. So I'll select 2, and then I will click off. So now it's going forward 2 more periods, so 2021, 2022, and 2023. And the other thing we want to do is we want to display R-squared value on the chart. Now, the R-squared value is just a measure of how well that trend line describes the relationship between the total billable hours and the time. The closer it is to 1, the better the relationship. Okay, so we've created a trend line. Now that I've got my trend line in, I'm going to close my trend line options here, and then I'm going to go and change the theme for my workbook. So I'll go to page layout, and I will choose theme, and I'm going to look for the slate theme. And slate theme is right down here. It's a bit brown, and I will select that. So now my theme has changed a bit. It sort of changed the look. My next step is that I want to highlight the 2018 data point. So there's something I want to highlight here. So I want to make it so it's a little bit more bold and able for people to see. So I'm going to select the data point. And once I select the data point once, if I click once, it will select all data points. If I click twice, it will select just the individual one. Now I don't want to double click. It does something different when I double click, okay? When I double click, it comes up with my format data points. Now I could do that. So I could format this data point. If this doesn't come up, like if my my options don't come up, there's a couple of ways of getting it. So I want to format this data point, and I can right mouse button click, and I can choose to format data point this way using a right mouse button click. I could also go to my format tab up here, and you will see that I have the series. I have all these different options here that I can choose, okay? And then I could format my selection. So I'm going to format my data point, and I don't need to format the series, and I don't need to format the shape. I think I'm going to format the line itself, okay? So I'm going to go to the fill and line button, and I will click on the marker. So I have line and marker. So I'm going to choose the marker, and I'm going to choose the marker options, okay? So I have some built-in options button, right? So I have a built-in options, and I have this one here, and it's at size 5 right now. So now I'm going to choose to change this to a size 12, okay? So I've changed it to a size 12, so it will be much larger. And then I'll go to the fill. So see how big it went? It went quite big. I'm going to go to the color button right down here. And I'm going to choose black text 1. Okay, so black text 1. And it changed it to black. So in order to save what I just did there, I can just click off of it, X out, and now it's saved. And we can see that we have highlighted the 2018 data point. Now that we've created our line chart, a 2D line chart with a trend line, we're now going to go to the sheet called Analysts Figures, and we have a bunch of information in here. And our next step is to create and format pivot table reports. When we talk about pivot table reports, also known as a pivot tables, is actually an interactive tool that summarizes all this worksheet data. It uses filter buttons in the cells and a pane to change the way that the data is presented without changing any of the original data. Pivot table reports allow us to view different summaries of the data quickly and easy just by using a single table. When we create a pivot table report, we can use categories in the data to summarize the different groups and different totals. So that's our goal now, is we're going to sort of be experimenting a little bit So we might try something and have to put it back. But we can see that we have 2 cities, and we can see that we have some employee experience. So 0 to 5, 6 to 10, more than 10 in each city. And we have different types of accounting types. And then we have the billable hours in 2020, 2021, and the revenue that was earned in 2020 and 2021. So that's the data that we have right now. And now we're going to do some summarizing and to make it a little bit more reader or user friendly. The first step is to actually create a blank pivot table. And this really is going to allow us to create the framework within that allows us to analyze all this available data. So I'm just going to put my cursor in any of this data. It actually doesn't matter what cell it goes in. So I could put it in, say, B3. And I'm going to go to my Insert tab. And you can see that right around here we have these tables. And we have pivot tables, recommended pivot tables, and tables. So we're going to choose the recommended pivot tables for now. And you can see that they recommend specific tables. So this could be like, well, that kind of looks close to what I want. And what they've done is they've taken the data and they have sort of put in some kind of recommendation. And you could choose any one of these you want, but we're not going to do that. We're going to select a blank one. So I'll say cancel. And now I'm going to go into pivot table, and I'm going to, I could just click the button, or I could do from table or range. So I will just click the button, and it says from which table or range. And you'll notice that it's already highlighted the data because I had my cursor inside there. So it selected the data. And I want to put this on a new worksheet. Okay, so I want it to go on a new worksheet. And then I'll just say, okay. So now I have a blank worksheet. It's called Sheet 1. And we can see we have a pivot table report. So we have this area for our pivot table. And over here we have some pivot table fields. Now, if you notice, all of these are the field names that were in our data on our table or in our spreadsheet there. So we have city, employee experience, accounting type, billable hours, 2020, 2021, and then 2020 revenue and 2021 revenue. We also have some areas in here, filters, columns, rows, and values. And this is where we're going to be building our pivot table from. So I have a sheet and I'm going to start adding it. So once we create our pivot table, we can move things around as much as we want. So we can use any one of these fields. So we're going to drag accounting type field from here, and we're going to drag it down to the rows area. And as soon as I do that, you'll see that the accounting type has become one of my row items. I'm then going to click employee experience, and I'm going to add it to the rows type as well. Okay, so now we have a couple of things going on. So we have our auditing, and within auditing, so within accounting type, we have 0 to 5, 6 to 10, or more than 10. And then we have forensics in general. Now, if I want to move this, like say I wanted to group it differently, if I move employee experience above accounting type, now I can see that I have employee experience is the group that it's within. So it does the employee experience first. So you can see just by moving those around, it allows us to see how different that is. So we don't have any data here, we just have the rows. Now we're going to add some data. So we're going to drag the 2020 revenue field into the values, okay? In the values is where we start adding our information, like the data. And then we're going to take 2021 revenue and we'll drag that down here. So now we've created 2 columns with data in them. So this is summed, and these are the values, the sum of the 2020 revenue for all those from 0 to 5 years in auditing. So now we have some data in there, and all we did was drag and drop. And if we did something wrong, we just move it out. So say I didn't want employee experience in there, I could just move it out and drop it in. Okay, so it's gone. But I actually do want employee experience, so I'm going to bring that back in. Our next step with our pivot table, or pivot table charts, is to change the layout of this pivot table. So when we see multiple rows, different layouts can really identify the groups and subgroups that are in there. So we have our pivot table fields here, and it's selected, and we have our pivot table analyze and design tabs up here. Okay, so if we are selected off of it, it will be gone. But as long as we select in somewhere in our pivot table, it will be there. So we want to choose design, and we want to go to the report layout button. And in the report layout button, we can see different forms. So compact form is what we have, outline form, tabular form. So they all look just a little bit different. So we can repeat all item labels. So you notice auditing, auditing, and auditing. Or we can not repeat the the labels. So those are just different ways of looking at it. So you can see it all these different ways. And I think that we're going to actually choose the repeat all item layouts, and we want to ensure we're in tabular form. Okay, so I kind of like it better the other way, but this is what we're looking at. We can also change the view of the pivot table report. So in the rows area, we're going to put the rows, like, so we have a accounting type, we have employee experience. So we have these different drop-down lists that we can choose. So we can choose to sort and only select certain ones. So we could select only, say, I don't know which ones we want. Forensics and investments. So we could have just forensics and investments accounting type. So we want to, maybe we'll have some other ones. So we could choose to filter using maybe general and taxes. So this allows us to sort or filter that way, so we only see those specific values that are there. Okay, and if I want to clear my filter, I can simply click on my button and I can clear the filter from the accounting type right there. And now all of my data is back the way I wanted it. We can also change our row. So if I drag down in my rows area here, click that up, I can now see that I have grouped it by employee experience, 0 to 5, 6 to 10, and more than 10. I could also choose to turn off my do not repeat my item labels. It would look a little bit better. So now I have 3 groups, and they are employee experience and accounting type. So there's different ways. It depends on what we want to see with our data. We can also take the city field that we have here, and we can drag that down into a row. So now we have the employee experience, the accounting type, and the city. Okay, so we could also get rid of one of these if we wanted. We could remove the accounting type and have those that are part of the city with their employee experience. We could bring back our accounting type, and we could get rid of employee experience, and we can see that we now have the city by accounting type. Or if I wanted to, I could just move my accounting type up a row, and now I can see what it's grouped by accounting type. So there's lots of different ways that we can look at our data. You might want to throw some things back in here and sort of clear it off. And if I wanted to get rid of city, for example, I could just move it out and it's out. Or I could take my city field and I could put it on the top. And now it's grouped by city. So there's a number of ways of doing that. And I will probably have to fix it back up to how they want it here, which is that we want city out. And let's go back and we have accounting type or employee experience first, accounting type second. And we could also, you see here we have a filter up here. And what we could do is then filter by city. So I'll take city and I'll drag it in there. And now we can see that we have this availability of city pops up there. So you'll notice that if I take it out, it's not there, okay, because we weren't doing it. But if I drag city in there, it is back up here. So it's city, and it just means that we can filter. So we're going to click on the filter, and you'll see that we have two cities. So we could choose to filter by just Durante and say, okay, so now it's only got, we don't see the word in there, or the city in there, but it's been filtered by that. So there's so many different ways of working with this. We could clear the filters. We could show all. So if I went to all and said, okay, they're all there, I could choose Jameson. And I could say, okay. So this is when you see the filter button right here, that's got a line that shows it's been filtered. But once I go to all and say, okay, then you can see it's not filtered at all. Okay, so now we're going to do a little bit more filtering. This time I want to make sure that I show all of my, repeat my item labels just to be sure. We're going to follow the steps. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the accounting type button out here and we're going to remove it from the row and put it in the filters area. Okay. Now, right now I'm filtered by, I have two filters. I have city and all. I'm going to actually remove city. I'll just take that out. So city is gone. So that's gone. And we're going to move city. I should have just moved it down to below employees experience. So now I have employees experience by city. Okay. So now we see that we have the accounting type doesn't show within the details of the report. So it's filtered by that, but it's not shown on the rows. Now we're going to go to the filter button in cell B2 right here under all. And we're going to select multiple items. So we're going to click multiple items and then we have this tick box that comes. So we want to remove the checkbox from auditing, from forensics, and from investments. So now we'll say, okay, well, now, so there's more than one way to do things. So now we have removed those items and we are just displaying the revenue by those specific items for general and taxes. Now, if I go back to my filter button and I choose all again and say, okay, it will include all of the data. We're next going to drag the accounting type out of the filters area so that it's no longer filtered by accounting type. Okay, so the filter is gone. And now we can remove and add data to this report as well. So we have the city field. It's down in one of our rows. And we want to remove the city out of the rows. Okay, so it comes out. So now we just have the revenue for 2020 for 0 to 5 years for employee experience and the revenue here. So it's got all of them. And then we'll take the accounting type and we will add it to the row area below the experience. So we're almost going back to where we were. Okay. So we've now got it pretty much back to the way it was. So we have employee experience and accounting type and our revenue values here. Okay, so now that we've played around with our filtering, we're going to format this pivot table report just to make it look a lot better. So we're going to name the sheet, double click on the sheet. We're going to name the sheet tab Revenue Pivot Table. Okay, I'll push enter. We're going to set the color to tan accent 2. So tab color is tan accent 2. We're going to go to cell A7 in the pivot table, just so that we're selected the pivot table. We're going to go into the pivot table styles. We're going to choose more. And we are going to choose dark gray pivot style dark 9. So I'm going to go down to dark and I'm going to go dark gray pivot style dark 9. So I'm going to choose that one down there. And now we have a pivot table that's starting to look a little bit better. We still haven't formatted our numbers, but we're going to get there. We're going to change the number format. So when I select the number, like if I just put my cursor on the numbers here and I right mouse button click and I choose the number formats, I want to choose to have the currency number with 0 decimals, okay? And I'm going to keep the dollar sign and I'm going to choose the third. Actually, I don't think it matters. I can choose that one. So that one's fine. And I'll just say okay. Now you'll notice that it did all of them in this row, right? So all of the data within the pivot table of this row for 2020 revenue, it changed the data. I only needed to do it once. I don't need to select the data. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'll just click on any cell. I'll go to number formats and I'll choose currency, 0 decimals, and say okay. So I've now got my currency starting to look a little bit better and I can save my data right now. Our next task is summary functions. So you'll notice that we have some of 2020 revenue and some of 2021 revenue. When we put values, or when we do our sum of our values down here and in our pivot table, the default value that they put in is sum. So that is the default. We may not always want to add them up. So in a pivot table report, you can easily change these summary functions. We could use sum, we could use count, we could use average. So that's what we're going to do next. So if we select C4 C5, and we can choose, when we look at C5, we can right mouse button click on that and we can summarize values by. So we have some choices here. They're quite simple. Sum, count, average, min, max, and product. And then we could do more options. But right now we want to change this to average. So instead of having the sum, we want what is the average revenue in 2020 for each one. And we'll do the same for 2021. We're going to change that to average. And it doesn't matter what cell we click in. We will right mouse button click, summarize values by, and we will choose average for column D as well. Sometimes we may need to add some more columns, some more summary functions. So in this case, we have the average 2020 revenue and the average of 2021 revenue. but we may want to add a new field to analyze some additional data. So we're going to go into the field list over here in the pivot table field list, and we're going to take the 2020 revenue field, and we're going to take that and we're going to add it to the values. Oops, I didn't click it. So 2020 revenue, and we're going to put it down in the values area down here for the sum of values. So when we do that, so it becomes the third field. So you notice that we now have average of 2020 revenue, average of 2021 revenue, sum of 2020 revenue, and we'll throw in the 2021 revenue as well. So now that we have, what we have is we have a couple of two more fields, and these fields are columns, right? So field that we can now change. So we've got the sum, so we have the average and we have the sum. When it was put in without number formatting, which is okay. We can always fix that. But we can also change this to be whatever type of summary value we're looking for. And I want to customize it a little bit more. So with the sum of the 2020 revenue, I'm just down here in my pivot field area, and I'm going to click the down arrow, and I'm going to go to value field settings. So this will be the settings for that value there. And it has a name of sum of 2020 revenue, which is exactly what is in E4. And it says it's the sum. I could change it here as well. So there's numerous different type things that we can summarize values as. But what I want to do now is I simply want to change the name. So I'm going to change it to 2020 total revenue. Okay, so I'm just going to rename that total revenue so that it renames my field. And I'll say okay. And so I have 2020 total revenue. I'm going to do the same with the sum of total 2021 revenue. So I'll click on the down arrow there, go to the field value settings, and I will change that to 2021 total revenue, and I'll get rid of the word sum of and say okay. And I'm going to actually move these around. So I want my total 2020 revenue to be before average. So I'll just drag it up. So now it's become part of column C. And I'll move total 2021 revenue up there as well. So I have two 2020 and 2021 total revenues. I'm also going to format the number format, so I'll just click in there, anywhere in there, and I will right mouse button click and go to number formats. I'll make it a currency, and I'm going to make it a currency with, I was just seeing whether they wanted any, 0 decimals, so just double checking. And I'll do the same for the 2021 total revenue. And say okay. So now that I've got my columns C and E to be 2020 total revenue, and I'm gonna I want D to say 2020 average revenue instead of average of. So we'll rename those. So I'll rename average of 2020 revenue. I'll rename that to 2020 average revenue. And say okay. And then I'll do the same for the 2021 average. So I just wanted to have a little bit more consistency. And get rid of that. All right. So now that we've renamed them, it's starting to look a little bit more, user-friendly, and we can really understand what's going on. Our next step is that we want to customize our field headers here and of course the field list. So we would do that because we want to provide a less cluttered worksheet, and then we'll sort of look at how it's going to look. So we're going to go, if our cursor is in our pivot table somewhere, go to Pivot Table Analyze, and over here in the Show, way over here is Field List, Buttons, and Field Headers. So we can select the ones that we want gone. So we're going to hide the field list. So when I click that, my field list goes away. If I click it again, it will come back. I'm going to hide my field headers so you can see what went away. So it was the employee experience and accounting type. So it cleaned it up a little bit. And we have the expand collapse button. So you'll see what happens when I do that. I can expand it and collapse the button. So you see I have a minus button and a plus. So if I click the minus button, then it is collapsed. And if I click the plus button, it comes back. But what this does is with the show, all they're doing is showing the plus and minus, okay? So they'll show the plus and minus. And when we send this report out, sometimes we want to not show the plus and minus. So that's just another option up there. The other thing we're going to do is to go to the pivot table options. And right over here in the pivot table, way on the other side, is the pivot table options button. And this options button, once we click on it, will show us what the name of the pivot table is and a whole bunch of other options that we can use. We want to ensure that our auto fit column widths on update is available. So we want that to be on. Oh, no, we want it to be off, actually. We don't want it to auto fit. And I don't think there's anything else that we need to fix right now. That was it. And then we will say OK. Okay, so now we're looking good. We may need to expand and collapse categories. We may want to see all of this, or we may not want to see any of it. So if I collapse my 0 to 5, and I also have up here, I can expand and collapse fields all up here as well. Okay, so that would be one of the options that we could use is this up here. We also have the ability to use any of these other sets. So calculated fields, we have so field settings, all of these different settings up here that we may want to utilize. But one of the powers of Windows, I guess, is the right mouse button click. So if I click on anywhere in this, anywhere here, and I choose the right mouse button click, I can expand and collapse from here as well. Oh, it went away. Let's try that again. I'll right mouse button click, go to expand collapse, and I can expand and collapse as it was already expanded. So I can also collapse employee experience, or I can expand all, the entire field. So it just gives us an option in here to, with our right mouse button click, to expand and collapse at any time we want. We want to keep that all expanded, and then we're going to actually remove our show hide button. So we're now gotten it so that we don't have our show hide. We have our right mouse, we're expanded all the way. So we have it expanded all the way. We now want to create a heading just to tell us what this is. So we're going to add a couple of rows. So I'm going to click on 1 and insert, and I will insert another row, insert, and then in A1, I'm going to type in Bell and Rogers accounting report. So we want Bell and Rogers accounting report. And I'll push enter. And the subtitle is going to be 2020 and 2021. I think I didn't push enter or something. Oh, I must have pushed tab. Let's delete that. Okay, so I'm going to merge and center A1 to F1. I'll merge and center that. Do the same for 2020 and 2021. Merge and center that. I'm going to make Bell and Rogers accounting report. I'll make that a title and I'll bold it. And the 2020 and the 2021, I'm going to make that a heading 4. Okay, so we've now made it a little bit more so we understand what's going on there. Our next task is to update some data in our data itself. One thing about pivot tables is you actually have to refresh them if you change the data. Okay, so it doesn't update automatically. So we're going to go to the analyst figures and we're just going to make some changes. So we'll go to E15, and we're going to change that to 9,225. And then we'll go to G15. So that was the billable hours for 2021. And our revenue, we're going to change to 107,7757. Okay, so we're going to change the values there. And when we do that, our revenue pivot table doesn't automatically update it. So we have to make sure that we're inside the pivot table in order for our pivot table analyze button to come up. And then when that comes up, you'll see that the data, we need to refresh our data. So once I click that, it will refresh and update the data. And we want to make sure that if there's any data that has been changed, that happens. So we'll just click refresh. And the numbers have changed because we had a little bit of an update in our analysts and figures data. Another thing that we can do is we can really drill down into the pivot table. So if we want to see detailed information about where this came from or where a value came from, we can. So in this case, we want to see all of the 2021 investment accounting for employees with 6 to 10 years of experience. So we're going to go into D16. So it's investment. I'll click D16, investment, 6 to 10 years. And then I can just double click it. Okay. So I double clicked it and I can select away, and it sees that we have a Jameson and Durant 6 to 10 years investment. These were the billable hours in 2020 and 2021 and the revenue. So I drilled down into it. It created a brand new sheet down here. And this sheet is now available to like sort of save and keep. So I don't need to save this sheet, but sometimes you may want a specific information so that you could either print it out or send it to somebody else. So I will undo that. And then I just go back to the revenue pivot table area there. So anytime you want to drill down, just double click and it will create its own report. It's actually quite handy. Okay, so make sure that you save right now. It's a good save point, and we'll move on to pivot charts. A pivot chart report, which is also known as a pivot chart, is just an interactive chart that shows us the data more in chart-like, which a lot of us prefer just because it allows us to present the data nicer. So we're going to create a pivot chart from a pivot table. We can create and start with a pivot chart. We'll do that next, but for now, we're just going to create a pivot chart from this data. So this pivot chart is going to show the 2-year data for each accounting type side by side. So we're going to click anywhere in here. So we'll click like A7. And we're going to go to the pivot table analyze tab, and we will click on our pivot charts. So if you notice up here, we have all sorts of different data action calculations and tools. So we have a pivot chart right here. We're going to click on pivot chart, and it sort of looks very familiar. We're inserting a chart, and we're going to go to the 3D clustered column chart in the gallery. We'll click on that, and we'll simply say okay, and we now have a pivot chart. Right now it's kind of small. We're going to fix it. We want to move it to its own sheet so that we can work with it. So I'm just going to go into the design tab for the chart. So I'm clicked on the chart, and I'll go to the design tab, and I'm going to move that chart to its own sheet. So I'll take it a new sheet, and I'm going to call it revenue pivot chart. Double check. Oh, I say pivot chart. And so now I can really look at it and see what it's supposed to look like. It's a little bit cluttered. I'm going to get rid of some stuff, but you'll notice I have my values over here, and I can get rid of any of those. I can do filtering. I can get rid of any of our anything. Like it's really fun and easy to work with. So I've got that done. I'm going to change the tab color. I will change my tab color just so that I get it right, and I will choose my brown accent, I don't know, 4. And now what I would like to do is to declutter, just have the data that I actually want in there. So we want to get rid of the average revenue data. So if I have my my cursor here, you'll see that I have a show hide, and I can show my field list. And then if I want to get rid of those average revenues, I'm just going to go over to my average revenue here, and I'm just going to throw it away. Okay, so I'll remove it and throw it away, and I'm going to get rid of the 2021 average revenue as well. Okay, so I wanted to get rid of that. It wasn't of any use to me. So now I can see that I have the total revenue for 2020 and 2021 by accounting type and in grouped by experience. Okay, so now it's looking good. We got some things to fix up still. We'll work on a little bit of beautification. So I'm going to click the reddish brown here, series. So now that you'll notice that I have selected all of them because there's little dots on all of them, and I can right mouse button click to display my shortcut. And I want to format my data series right down here. Okay, and then I end up with my format data series. I'm going to change my column shape. And if this is closed, the series options, then just open it. I'm going to change it to a full pyramid. And I think that's all. I just wanted to make sure that that was all. And I will do the same for this next one. Okay, so I'll right mouse button click, format my data series, and change it to a full pyramid. And so now it's starting to look a little bit better. I'm then going to go into the chart elements. So you'll see here I have chart elements, and I want to add a title, I think, and I want to have a chart title. Okay, so I'm going to click on chart title. So now I have a chart title. I'm going to select my chart title right here, and I will type in Bell and Rogers, and I'll click enter to go to the next line. I want total revenue by employee, experience, and accounting type. Oops, I'm going to move that. Okay, one too many C's. And I think we want another line, and the third line is going to be, did I push enter? "2020 and 2021. Okay, so I'm just going to then select the text here, and I'll change the font color to a black text one. And what else? I'll select off of that. So now we've got a chart title. And I'm going to go back to the chart elements here. And I'm going to change the back wall. So I will go to, actually, I'm going to use the elements somewhere else, because here I don't really want to do it there. So I will close that one, and I'll go to the Format tab. And over here, I have the ability to select all of the chart elements in the current selection. So over here is another way of doing it. It sort of does the same thing, but I can choose all the elements of my chart here. So I'm going to choose the back wall. Okay, so it selected what I wanted. I'm going to go over here. So on the formatting our wall, we have all these different things here. So this is the shape of the effects, and this is the fill. So I want to select the fill, and I want to change it to, in the fill gallery, I want a color of light blue right down there in the standards color. I'm going to go to the shape. Is there a shape arrow? Don't even see it anywhere. The shape fill again. And I'm going to choose our gradient fill. Maybe I'll just come up here to my shape fill up here. We're going to go to a gradient fill. So we're still on the format tab. It's just easier to do it up here. So I'll use gradient, and I think I'm going to pick center. Okay, from center. So I'll select that, and it does a gradient fill from the center. And I think I'm going to do the exact same thing on the sidewalls. So I can either click the sidewall. So see, I clicked the sidewall there, and it came up here, way up here in the current selection as sidewall. Or I could have used the drop down and selected sidewall. So I'm going to go to change my color to a light blue, and I will do my shape fill as a gradient center. Okay, and then I can select off of it, and I now have created a lovely chart of my pivot table here. So now I have a pivot chart made from my revenue pivot table. Then we're just going to change some views just to see what else it would look like. When we change the view of the pivot chart, it lets us analyze different relationships graphically. So we're going to display the pivot chart analyst tab, and we're going to go to the field list. So the field list is on. Make sure it's on. So now we have our field list here. And we want to click the employee experience. So I have employee experience here, and we want to add it. So I have that added. I thought I already had that. Let me just double check here. Employee experience checkbox in the choose field. It's already on. To add to the report, and then deselect the employee experience field. Oh, I see. No. It was wanting me to deselect it. Why didn't you just say that? And then we want to put a check mark. So now we just see auditing, forensics, and general, and the total revenue for both. We can do it by city. So I'll just add the city in there. And so we have it by Durante and Jamerson. So you'll notice in our axes down here, we have accounting type and city. If I was to swap those around, okay, so then we do it, now we've got it grouped by Durante, and then auditing, forensics, general, investment, and taxes, all the accounting types are within that. Okay, so I'm going to put it back to that, and then I have this as the sheet, and then I can go to my pivot table, and it shows exactly what I have created in my chart. Okay, so the changing in the chart automatically updates the pivot table itself, and changing in my pivot table will update my chart as well. Okay. Our next step is to create another pivot table and a pivot chart directly from data. So we're going to leave our pivot chart that we've created and our pivot table here. And then we will move on to the analyst figures. And we're going to create a pivot chart directly from this data and that we can use for something different. So it's just going to allow us to have some kind of different inquiry somewhere else. So our cursor needs to go into our data here. We're going to go to Insert. And in our insert, we're going to insert a pivot chart. And I'm just going to click this down arrow beside pivot chart. And this time we want a pivot chart and a pivot table. So we want them both. So we want to ensure that we select that one. And the range is correct. So this is the range that I want. And I'm going to not use an external data source at all. I'm going to put it onto a new worksheet and I'll just say OK. So now I have a pivot table going here. It doesn't matter whether it says 4, 3, 2, it doesn't matter what the number is. It's just that if I make some and delete them, then it just adds to it. And we have a chart here that's not built. And now we have some pivot table fields. And you'll notice that my chart part is selected, so the categories or the axes categories are available for me. So I'm going to use the field list and I'm going to add the employee experience to the axes area, and I'm going to add the city to the axes area. Okay, so all we did was now have the city and the employee experience. So there's no data in there yet. And I want to add the 2020 revenue to the values and the 2021 to the values list. So now we are displaying those values. I'm going to close my field list for now. I'll rename my worksheet. So I'll just double click to rename it. And I'm going to rename that worksheet average revenue. I know it seems weird to say average revenue when it's got the sum of revenue, but that's okay. So we have average revenue, and then I'm going to change it to a yellow tab color of yellow. Okay, so now we're starting with average revenue. We've got a sheet started, or a chart, and we have the data right there. So we want to create a calculated field for this pivot report. We would like to review the average revenue by city and experience for 2020 and 2021, but it's not part of our data set, so we need to do a calculated field. And of course, Excel is really good for calculated fields. So we're going to click the pivot table. So this is the pivot table over here, and this is the pivot chart. So we're going to click the pivot table. It doesn't matter where it is. We want the pivot table analyze tab to go. And then we're going to choose the fields, items, and sets right here, up here in calculations. So we're going to do a calculations. So we're going to create a calculated field. Okay, so this is just going to create a new field for us. And in this field, we're going to name it average 2020 billing per hour. Okay, we're going to make sure we do it right because it's really hard to change. Average billing per hour. And we're going to create a formula. So the formula in this case is the billing hours. I could actually select this. I don't have to type. Okay, so we're going to go down in here into the fields. We're going to double click the 2020 revenue field. So we'll click 2020 revenue. So it comes up like that. And we're going to divide by the billable hours in 2020. So the billable hours in 2020. Okay, so that's going to be the average 2020 billings per hour. And we're going to add that. Okay, so we added it. Doesn't look like anything happened, but we do. It's down here. It's a new field. We'll see average 2022 billing per hour. okay? And I'm going to say okay. So now I'm going to, so we have sum of average. That doesn't make sense. They just called it that. We'll fix that. So then I'm going to go do that again. I'm going to go to the fields item set, and this time I'm going to do it for the 2021 data. So in this case, it's going to say we have 2021. Oh, no, average, sorry. Average 2021 billing per hour. Okay, and we're going to create a formula. And in this case, we're going to use 2021 revenue divided by the billable hours for 2021. And we'll say okay. So then we'll have average 2021 billing per hours. So now we have a couple of more cells. We don't have to show them all the time, but that's where they are. Then we're going to drag this pivot chart that we have over here, and we're going to put it up here. We're going to fix it all up just so that it's sitting where we want it. And then we'll have to fix all these field lists that we got going on. All right, so we're going to go to the, we're in the pivot table. We're going to go to the pivot chart analyst. Actually, I'll click on the pivot table, and I'll go to the pivot table analyze button. We're going to go to the show hide, and we're going to remove the, we're going to show hide the, put the field list, or open up the field list, sorry. And then we're going to remove the check mark for the 2020 revenue, because we don't need to see that anymore. So 2020 revenue and the 2021 revenue. Okay, then, oops, don't do that. I want to select the chart, so I'm going to move that over here just so we can keep seeing it. So now we have sum of average. That doesn't even make sense, but we'll fix that. So we'll go to A3, and we will apply a new style to our pivot table. So we're going to go to the Design tab, and we're going to choose Medium Style 19. See where that is. So tan pivot style medium 19. I'll choose that one. We're going to add a couple of blank rows so that we can put in the heading here, so we can have some idea of what it is. And this is going to be Bell and Rogers is the first line. And it's going to say average billing per hour comma 2020 and 2021. Okay, I'm going to merge and center those. I'll do it over A1 to C1, so I'll just do it to there. Average billing per hour. And Bell and Rogers, we'll make it title style and bold. And average billing per hour is going to be a heading 4, sort of following their formatting. We're going to do currency style for the with 2 decimal places for our data here. So I just put my cursor on any one of them. I'll right mouse button click, and I will do my number format. And in this case, I'm going to go to currency with 2 decimal places, and it has the dollar symbol. We want the dollar symbol, if I'm not mistaken, and to the average, okay? And I'll do exactly the same for the 2021. Right mouse button click, number format, currency, 2 decimals with a dollar sign symbol, and we'll say okay. We're going to change the column width for columns B and C. So I'll select column B and C. I'll change the width So the column widths here is going to be 12 point. Let's see what it does. See how that goes. I should check here to see what their column width are going to be. I'm hoping it's not centimeters, but you never know. Once I go and look a little bit more, I might find that it is, but it doesn't look like it. It looks okay. Change the width for column D. I will change the width. And I'll change the column width for column D to 50. Okay. And I'll wrap and center the field names in B5 and C5. Okay. So it says, I probably forgot that we were supposed to rename that somewhere. It still doesn't say I'm supposed to rename it, but it still says sum of average. Oh yeah, there it is. I missed that right there. So we're going to change the field names in these cells. So I'm going to click on them, and I'm going to go to my value field settings. Okay, value field settings. And right here it says value field settings custom name. I'm going to change the name from sum of average 2020 billings per hour to, I'm going to change it to average 2020 hourly billing. Okay, I'll say okay, and I'll change this one to my value field settings, and I'm going to change that one to average 2021 hourly billing. So we have created a calculated field in there, and now I have to go back and do my column widths. I need to change my column widths back to 12, and I want to wrap text. Is that what it said? It wanted me to wrap texts and center. Okay, so I'll do the same for that. Wrap text and center. B5 and C5. And I'm going to go back to my pivot table analyst. And I want to hide the field list. So that's gone. I want to hide the expand and all of the field headers. Okay. So I will zoom in a little bit. So now I have this information right here. My next step is to actually just fix up my chart. Okay, so let's work with this chart. I want it to be positioned from D1 to D15. So I'll move it up to D1, and it's going to end up going down to D15. So we'll have to fix it up so it looks better, but D1 to D15. We want to apply a new style, so I'm going to go to Design, and I'm going to apply style 12 right here. So I'll apply style 12. I'm going to change colors, so I'll go back to my format, and I want to, I could probably do it over here too, okay, in my chart colors. So the change colors button on my design tab, I'll change colors right here, and I'm going to change it to the colorful palette 3. Colorful palette 3, that button right there. I'm going to take the legend and move it to the top. So I'll go over to my chart elements, and I'm going to go to the legend. So I'll just drop down to the legend, and I'm going to tell it to put it on the top. Right now it's at right. but I'm going to change it so that it's at the top. Okay. And it's starting to look okay. That looks about right. But it does sort of seem like maybe my thing is a little bit too small, so maybe D. I'll just double check that D is column width of 50, okay. And if I increase it, I still see that I have values, which I don't really want that in there. I don't really want those in there. I want them gone. So yeah, I want to get rid of those. And in order to do that, I need to click back on my chart, pivot chart, and I want to remove the field buttons. That looks much better. So my field buttons were on, so you notice it's like, get out of my way, I don't like it. So yeah, now we're getting there. So average of 2020 billing hours. So that is we created a pivot chart and table together. So this information is good for them. One really cool thing that we're going to do next is to work with slicers. And slicers are actually really cool because they're just like buttons that are put in there that you can then filter your data instantly that way. It's really cool. You can do it without using filters. It goes on and off just as fast as a click. So we're going to use some filters here. We're going to use some slicers here to create some subgroups. In order to do that, we're actually just going to create a copy of our average revenue worksheet. So I'm going to right mouse button click, move or copy. I'm going to create a copy and it's going to be in front of average revenue. Okay, so it'll go before that sheet. And it came as average revenue number 2. And I'm going to change that and I'm going to call it slicers. Okay, and I'll change the color to green. Just a green. And now we're going to play a little bit with slicers. So we're going to apply chart style 8 to this chart. So I'll go into design. I'll change it to chart style 8. I'm going to set the column widths for column E to 18 and F to 19. Okay. And I'm going to turn off and make sure that I don't have the field headers buttons in the pivot table, which I don't. That would be up here, and I would make sure that my plus hide is gone and anything is gone. Okay, so I want to make sure that there's nothing there. So we're going to analyze the sales data for a specific subgroup. So I'm going to make the chart, pivot chart active. And I'm going to go to the pivot chart analyze tab. And up here you can see where it says that we can insert a slicer in our filters. Okay, so I'm going to insert a slicer and I'm going to place a check mark for city, employee experience, and accounting type. Okay, so I'm going to take 3 slicers. I'm going to make 3 slicers. So now I've got 3 slicers going there. I'm going to format these and put them where I want so that they look like buttons for everybody to use so that they're easy to read, They're right in people's faces. So I'll click the title bar of the city slicer, and I'm going to drag that into column E. Okay, so right up there into column E. And I will make it so that it ends at the bottom of row 6. Okay, so I think that's pretty close to row 6 and E. A little bit down, a little bit, I think. Okay, and I'm going to take accounting type and I'm going to put it up into column F. And I will do that so that it ends on row 15 and fills row F. And then employees, I'm going to put up there and it will stop at 15. Okay. Okay, I guess this one needs to be a little longer. So I'm just placing it in there. Close enough. Okay, so now we have 3 slicers in here. So one at a time, I'm going to select the heading type. So I'm going to click on city, that one, and I'll hold my control key down and I'll click on employee and I'll click on accounting. So I've selected them all. So I'm going to go to the height right here. I'll select the text in the height box. So I'm going to select that. And I want to increase the height of the shape height. No, this is the buttons. So I want to change that to 0.4. Okay. So now we have our height, looks pretty good. We're going to choose the style. So we want to choose tan slicer style light 4. Okay. And we'll just deselect them. Okay, so now we have our slicers. They're in there. And now we can simply use them. So they are there and we can use them and it's really cool. So if I click City Durante, okay, you'll notice that it basically just filters the information. So it displays only the data for Durante in the pivot table and the pivot chart. If I hold down the control key and I click 0 to 5 years and let go. So now it has Durante and it has doesn't include 0 to 5 years. So it removes the 0 to 5 years and shows the 6 to 10 years and more and 10 years. If I click Jameson in the city, okay, so I have Jameson only with the 6 to 10 years and more only data. So basically it's really cool. You just click it and it will show you exactly what you're asking for. So I'm going to clear my filters on the city. So I'll just go to clear filters and I'm going to clear filters in my employee status as well. So I've cleared my filters and you can just play with it and just find just the data you want will come up. So I've cleared them. I'm going to click on just taxes though in the accounting type to see the aggregate data for the average hourly billing just for customers who chose tax services, and that's broken down by city and employee experience. So that's pretty cool. What else do we need to do? So click. So we're going to leave it with the taxes button being selected. And in this case, we're going to click the we'll click this button up here. So this says multi-select button, and then we will click the, what else are we doing? Investments. Okay, so we have investment and taxes. So now we have a multi-select in there. So we can see for those who had investments and taxes. And that's it. So they're kind of fun and easy to put in and easy to use. So we will just filter, and when we're done with it, we just close the filters or clear the filters. So the final thing that Bell & Rogers Company would like to compare is the billable hours in 2021 by using the years of employee experience. So we're going to create a box and whisker chart. So we will click the analyst's figures, and we're going to select B2. So B2 employee experience to B32. And we're going to hold our control key, and we're going to select E2 to E32. So this is the data that we're going to use. We're going to go to Insert, and we're going to choose the statistical chart. So over here in our charts, we're going to choose the statistical charts, and we're going to choose the box and whisker chart. Okay. So now we've created a box and whisker chart. You'll learn lots more about this in statistics. We're going to move this chart to its own page or sheet. So in a new sheet, and we're going to call it box and whisker chart. Just make sure whisker chart. Yep. And we're going to then fix this up. We're going to color the worksheet tab light blue. Light blue. And then we'll just do a little bit of editing of this box and whisker charts. So when we look at our box and whisker charts, we can see we've got a minimum and a maximum area. And this is the mean over here, where the X is, and this is how the data sort of sits. So we're going to select the text in the chart title. Okay. And we're going to type 2021 billable hours by experience. Okay. We're going to right-click any of the boxes to display the format data series. Okay. And in the series options that we have here, we want to show our inner points. So show inner points to display the data values as dots on the chart. And in the format data series pane, we want the fill and line to, okay, so we have fill open, and we want a gradient fill. Okay, so we want a gradient fill. And we're going to change this to a different style. And then we will change it to a style 3. 1, 2, 3. All right. So the reason why this goes all the way up to 30,000 is because here's an outlier, hey? Right up here is an outlier. So it doesn't fall within the proper standard deviation range or 3 deviations. So it's way up here, and that's why it's way up there. So, all right, so that is it for this module. I will upload my data into Cengage, and then I'll see what happens. So good luck going forward.